Hey there, everyone. My name is Jake Sirota, and welcome back to Ranking Secrets from Authority Builders. Today, we're going to be talking about how to prepare your website for the next Google Core algorithm update or the next spam update. All of these tips can pretty much apply. So, let's talk about them for a minute because every time one of these updates happen, the same thing ends up always playing out. People scramble, they try to figure out what changed and what they need to do to their website in order to fix things or prepare for the next one. But the uncomfortable truth is that Google doesn't tell us when they're planning on doing updates. They never have. So trying to time them or predict them is kind of a waste in time and energy. But the part that actually matters is that core updates usually don't introduce like brand new rules or result in you having to do something completely different than what you were doing before with your website. Pretty much, they surface problems that are already there for the algorithm. So that's why it feels so sudden whenever they launch these updates and rankings change. It's not because they like flipped a switch or anything, but it's because something that used to work when it comes to optimizing for search engines doesn't work, or vice versa. Other techniques that do work, new techniques that do work, might not used to work because of the way that they're tweaking the algorithm. So once you start to understand that, it becomes a lot easier to prepare your website for future Google algorithm updates. But before we go more in depth into how to actually prepare your website for a Google algorithm update, make sure to hit like and subscribe so you can stay tuned everything we're doing here at Authority Builders. So first things first, whenever people ask how to prepare for a Google algorithm update or for a spam update, I think the question is actually kind of slightly off. You don't really prepare for a core update. You prepare your site so that updates don't really matter that much. And whenever you look back at enough updates, the same weaknesses keep on showing up. And over again, you can use those findings to maybe tweak your long-term content strategy. But ultimately, looking for a quick fix to prepare your website for an algorithm update is kind of just the wrong framing to go about it in the first place. All right, so I was talking about the same weaknesses that show up again and again throughout these updates. And one of the biggest ones is just unclear content. Not bad content, not spam, just extremely vague, or pages that are trying to cover too much, pages that hedge every answer, pages that are written to rank instead of actually explain something, and then you keep writing that same article over and over because you're trying to rank for that term, and then you end up creating content that's cannibalizing each other. So those pages can work for a while, but then whenever Google reweights things, you end up cannibalizing your own content. And it's not because your content's terrible, it's because it's not organized well, or you're creating duplicate things that you already have pages targeting. So another big mistake whenever we look at sites that are often suffering from core algorithm updates is the fact that they're trying to create so much artificial authority that it's just extremely clear that they're doing spammy techniques that used to work in the old SEO days, but these techniques are now finally catching up with people. So low quality links, thin guest posts, stuff that looks fine in a backlink report but doesn't actually add any value to the internet. So those signals don't like fail right away, they fade kind of quietly, and they used to do wonders for a lot of people. So that's why a lot of people still swear by doing low quality links that might not carry weight anymore. For example, people who are doing Web 2.0 link building and spinning content that adds no value to your website, well, it used to work in the old days. But now, if you're still doing that, it's a huge red flag for Google to show that you're doing unnatural link building techniques. So remember, whenever Google is recalibrating how they view authority, you need to keep that in mind whenever you're consistently doing things. So the best way to prepare for a core algorithm update when it comes to building your authority is to build authority from reputable sources that are actually using signals that Google trusts. So for example, sites with real actionable like advice and their own rankings, and they're generating their own traffic, those are going to be the sites that you want backlinks from. If you're still building links on like Tumblr and all these Web 2.0s, that's not adding the same value that it used to. And if you're working with an agency that might be providing you links like that, it might be a good idea to ask what they're doing in order to adjust or prepare for future algorithm updates. So the main takeaway here is that building real credible authority long term for your business holds up way better than most people expect. If you're looking for manufactured authority and cheat codes, that's when you actually have to worry about your site getting tanked from algorithm updates, because Google might adjust something that used to work in the past, but now they view as extremely spammy. That's why a lot of sites end up getting tanked whenever they're doing maybe less than white hat tactics when it comes to building their authority. So the third pattern that we see kind of blends the other two together, and that's the fact that there's not a lot of focus whenever it comes to creating your content. Sites that cover too many topics, they have too many pre-built sections, they have too many pages because someone told them that they should have those pages. That's when you're going to start running into issues, because it's harder for people and search engines to understand your website that way. Whenever Google tightens for relevance and they're looking for quality guidelines, they are doing that in order to add more value to people. So topical clarity acts like insulation on your website. Sprawling out and doing all kinds of different types of content and drifting away from the main point of your business is not going to help you build that real authority and credibility that websites need in order to stay relevant throughout tons of core algorithm updates. Alrighty, so what actually helps a website stay steady throughout multiple algorithm updates? We can't predict when Google is going to launch these updates, and we can't predict how it's going to affect our organic traffic. But the best practices are honestly pretty boring. It's clear topics, pages that answer questions directly, and authority that comes from being referenced and being cited as a real source online. So it's a site structure that actually makes sense to a human and is easy for these search engines to understand. None of this is new, but it just kind of matters more whenever Google is adjusting weighting. And if your site feels more trustworthy and intentional, core updates come and go without too much drama. But if you're chasing cheat codes and shortcuts and stuff, every update can feel like a crisis. Here's a simple way to really kind of pressure test your website right now and decide if you need to be doing things differently in order to prepare for the next Google algorithm update. Just ask yourself a few questions, and hold up, they might be a little uncomfortable, but they're clear things that either you or your SEO professional should be asking. And that's one, would I trust this website if I didn't own it? Two, is it clear what this page is about, and is it actually adding value? And three, do our authority signals, like our backlinks and our citations, do they actually reflect what our business is doing in real life to add value to our industry or to our community? So if any of those answers to those questions feel kind of shaky, or you feel like one might not be up to par with the others, well, that's where you need to focus your time and effort, or tell your SEO team to focus their time and effort. You don't need to guess what Google is about to do or what the next cheat code is based on the last algorithm update. Being ready for the next core update isn't about timing or tactics. So the last main takeaway that I want you to remember whenever you're asking yourself, how can I prepare for the next Google core algorithm update? Keep in mind that preparing for the update is about removing the fragility from your website or your SEO strategy before Google exposes it or exposes you. So if you focus on that, then these updates stop being scary, and they just ultimately become a recalibration of your strategy over time. So that just about does it for this week's episode of Ranking Secrets from Authority Builders. Make sure to drop a comment, leave a like, and subscribe. Keep building that real authority, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.